Full disclosure, this was an old video from my main channel that didn't do very well, and I'm still incredibly proud of it, and I wanted to try and give it a second life here, because I mean, it's about a film called The Evil Within. It's literally perfect for this channel. I mean, I am the #1 The Evil Within shill, even though this film has nothing to do with the game, but you know, just enjoy the video. If it's your second time watching this, then enjoy it again. I really hope you enjoy this one. I'm super proud of it. Have you ever witnessed a piece of media that has truly disturbed you? One that you can't stop thinking about? One that has stuck with you to the point of haunting your dreams? Films that make you wonder what the hell is going on in the sadistic mind of the person directing this? Usually it's from the messed up scenes that, well, I'm not allowed to show on YouTube, especially not this early into the video. For me personally, that piece of media is called The Evil Within. And no, I'm not talking about the game here. There is a film also called The Evil Within. They're not related. The Evil Within is a low-budget horror film that went straight to streaming platforms, but don't let its low budget and little fanfare fool you. The things I've seen in this film have stuck with me far more than anything I've seen in a big budget horror film. And it isn't just messed up for the sake of being messed up with no point whatsoever. The film has so many practical effects and moments that will always stick with me, and almost all of these practical effects within the film were done by the director himself, Andrew Getty. The idea for The Evil Within came to Andrew from nightmares he experienced as a kid, and those nightmares must have been something else if this film is anything to go by. Andrew believed that dreams and nightmares you experience were your brain telling you a story, hence why the original name of the film was The Storyteller rather than The Evil Within. It's a good thing it wasn't called that, as I do think the name The Evil Within not only fits the premise of the film, but the production of it. The film began production in 2002 and it finished production and was released 15 years later in 2017. The production was so long that the actor for the main character, Dennis, in the film had just left college at the start, and he was 41 when the film had finally released. A huge factor for the long production was the fact Andrew did a lot of the work himself. Most of the props and practical effects and creative camera shots were made and done by him. Hell, the guy even created entire animatronics for the film. He spent days upon days perfecting everything, and a lot of that time did pay off. This film has some of the most creative shots and effects I've seen in a film. He was so incredibly passionate about this project, to the point that he financially crippled himself to make it. Sure, I said it was a low budget film beforehand, costing around $4 to $6 million to create, but almost all of that money came out of his own pocket. He was so dedicated. All he ate was bowls of cereal during production, as that was all he could afford, and probably not the good kind of cereal either. Due to the low budget, he obviously had to cut some corners, and some scenes were set within his own mansion. And within that specific mansion, he made his own office where he would spend hours upon hours working on this film. Like I said, it was a huge passion project for him. Knowing all of this makes it even more tragic that he passed away before he could even see the finished project in 2015. His ex unfortunately found him in his mansion having overdosed on a lethal amount of meth. Obviously, when he unfortunately passed away, the film wasn't done, and that's where the producer of the film, Michael Luceri, took the film into his own hands to finish Andrew's project and get it out there, rather than leaving it to rot unfinished. But Michael didn't have the same creative vision as Andrew. He never experienced the nightmares that inspired Andrew to make the film, and because of that, there's a section near the end where you can clearly tell it was done by someone else. Like, there are characters and scenes that just make absolutely no sense. Like this guy.
Why do you look like that? What's wrong with you? You want to know what's wrong with me? Nothing.
Due to these unfortunate events around the film, The Evil Within ended up becoming quite a mess, which is probably why it had barely any marketing, and why you've most definitely never heard of it. But despite all of this, the film has stuck with me. So you're probably wondering at this point, what is this film about? Well, The Evil Within begins with a monologue about dreams and how people think dreams are stories, but in reality they aren't. They're just mishmashed pieces of nothing clumped together to give you the illusion you're being told a story. And while we hear this, we get some absolutely amazing visuals that are supposed to represent what dreams are like. For the person monologuing in these sections though, some of his dreams were stories. One of those stories being him and his mother going to a carnival in the middle of a desert, and in that carnival is what is supposed to be the scariest haunted house ride of all time. So he begs his mother to go on the ride, and you know what the ride is? Well, It was absolutely nothing. Obviously he calls out the ride being shit, but the mother says this.
What makes you think the ride's over? What makes you think it's ever gonna end?
Even in this guy's nightmares, the CG is better than it is in Marvel films. That was the first nightmare he experienced in his life. It then cuts to the main character. This is Dennis, and he's laying in bed struggling to fall asleep. But see, the thing is, he's actually already asleep. He can't move his body whatsoever, as if he's in some sort of sleep paralysis. And his sleep paralysis demon is this grey man who teleports closer every time the shadow covers him up, not allowing us to get a good look at him. Even in the light, the man's face distorts, although we only briefly get a good look at his face when he turns Dennis over and proceeds to perform one of the most cursed scenes I have ever seen in any film. He slowly places a zip down Dennis's body and then unzips his skin and crawls inside of him. My friend Joe threatens to do this to me all the time. The grey man controls Dennis's body and he blacks out, waking up in a room he's never been in before, staring into a random mirror. And whilst Dennis is distracted by the mirror, all kinds of horrific nightmares are going on behind him. But by the time Dennis turns around, nothing seems out of the ordinary. Well, apart from being in a room he's never been in before. It hits him in this moment that he's no longer asleep. He is wide awake in this room. He must have sleepwalked into it under the control of that grey man. He leaves quickly, knowing he has control of himself again, as any sane person would do in this situation. And he finds out that the door he came out of leading to the room was a door within his home. That room had been there this whole time. After this intro, we cut to a nice picnic scene. I love my tonal whiplash in horror films. At this picnic, we meet two new characters sat with Dennis. The guy we see is John, Dennis's brother, and the woman next to John is called Lydia, who is John's girlfriend, I think. In this scene, we hear Dennis speak for the first time. Now, this wouldn't be anything special considering he was monologuing throughout his nightmare, but he doesn't talk like he does in his head. He struggles to talk in person, and that's because Dennis is mentally and physically disabled, with his brother acting as his carer. But John is getting pretty sick of having to look after Dennis, feeling like he's holding him down from living his own life. So when they get home, he tries to refurbish their house to sell the place and put Dennis into care. Obviously, he doesn't tell Dennis this. He starts the refurbishment by changing around Dennis's room, which is currently littered with hamster tubes. Before they even returned from the picnic, John had already started with the refurbishment. And one of the things he puts in there is something that Dennis instantly recognizes. The mirror from his nightmare is in his room. Clearly John was fully aware of that strange room in the house. It was probably just a storage room, to be honest. But Dennis is freaked out by this mirror, as he should be, and John is just confused by his reaction and refuses to take the mirror out of his room because it makes the room look nice, I guess. Dennis proceeds to break down and John compromises, saying the mirror will only be left in his room for a few days, and proceeds to leave Dennis to have his mental breakdown. Dennis talks to the mirror, telling himself that no matter how much John pushes, he will not accept the mirror, and he will never like it, which is when the mirror talks back to Dennis.
I like you.
He turns around to see his own reflection talking to him.
I like you a lot.
And just as shit starts to get interesting, the film cuts to John getting a knock on the door from this woman. I don't know why she's staring like... And this woman works for social services and received a tip that John had been losing his temper around Dennis. And of course he basically has to let her in and explain himself at this point, and we get a very boring scene where the two argue about whether or not Dennis should be in John's care. And John says this at one point.
You keep asking me if I have a temper, you're gonna find one.
Yeah, you're not really helping your case there, buddy. The only thing redeemable about this scene is seeing all of the cool transitional shots. After this, we cut to some sort of office, and we see not Bill Murray, who is John's therapist. He just sits there and calls him a stupid mug for like 4 minutes. And then after that, it cuts to John going on a dinner date with Lydia, where she also relentlessly rips into him for being a mug for no apparent reason whatsoever. The guy just can't catch a goddamn break. During all of this, Dennis is still in his room talking to his reflection in the mirror. His reflection tells him how John and Lydia are plotting against him right now, manipulating him to turn against them. And when they return from their dinner date, Dennis lashes out at John. He claims he's getting smarter because of what he's learning from his reflection, and because of it, he isn't afraid of the mirror anymore. Which right after saying this, he walks into a room that has transformed into a room full of mirrors, where all Dennis can see is himself, over and over again. There's no way out, and the only thing Dennis can do in this situation is explore the room room of mirrors, which is where he encounters the Grey Man again, who has a hold of one of Dennis's reflections. He proceeds to bite off the skin of his fingers and slit his throat, making Dennis watch the whole time. This obviously terrifies the guy and he legs it to try and find a way out, but sadly for him, there is no way out, as the room slowly closes in on him. Dennis wakes up in a cold sweat. Turns out he was just having another nightmare, which makes me wonder if he just passed out or some shit after walking away from John. Speaking of John, he stood right in front of Dennis's bed, looking into the mirror, getting himself ready for the day ahead. Dennis is still in shock at the nightmare he just experienced, and he proceeds to ask John this, to try and get some sort of reassurance about all of these nightmares he's been having.
Dream is a story I tell myself, right? I tell myself a story. One part of my brain tells another part of my brain a story. Well, if it's a story I tell me, how can I trick myself? You can't tell yourself a joke and not see the punchline coming.
What do you think someone else is telling you these stories?
I think that it has to be.
Someone like...
Dennis wakes up again and he is absolutely mortified. He instantly looks around the room to see if the Grey Man is there, to see if he's still dreaming, and he gets out of bed and crawls on the floor. Not entirely sure why he crawls on the floor, but while he's doing so he bumps into the mirror, where his reflection laughs at him, claiming that he scared him. The reflection then proceeds to explain to Dennis how he can make him not scared anymore, and he knows a way to stop the nightmares. Dennis asks how he can do this, and the reflection answers his question by manipulating Dennis into believing the way to make himself smarter and to stop the nightmares is by following the real rules. Rules that were supposedly kept hidden from him to keep him dumb. The reflection says that these rules are a test of sorts, and the first thing he needs to do is kill a cat.
Why?
His reflection justifies this by saying,
You like eating meat, right? So farmers can kill animals, right? See, that's the clue they gave you. They serve you meat. They're testing your gullibility when they say it's bad to kill animals. If you kill a cat, you can prove that you know which rules are fake.
Dennis goes downstairs to grab his weapon of choice for the job. God damn, I really hate this bit. How could you kill this little fella? Look at him, he's so silly. Dennis does it anyway, believing it will make him smarter. After the job's done, he stuffs the cat's corpse into a freezer and boasts about how he did such a good job because it wasn't just that cat he killed. He also killed dogs. He then lays out a collection of cassettes. The one we see clearly and the one Dennis picks up is a cassette on taxidermy. His reflection points out how important this cassette is and how it will help him understand what to do with the corpses of the cats and dogs in the freezer. John comes home while Dennis is working on his deranged project and he finds the taxidermy cassette tapes. Obviously this concerns him and he quickly questions him about what's going on. Dennis claims he got the tapes by accident and there was a mix-up at the shop where he picked up the wrong bag, and what he's doing in the room is actually just woodwork. John believes this, the dumbass, and before he can question anything, he gets a knock on the door. It's Lydia at the door, who asks him to go out for a dinner date, which is where we get another boring scene. Okay, let's skip this shit and get back to Dennis. While John and Lydia are out having dinner together, we see Dennis winding down for the night after a hard day's work, watching a documentary on spiders. He starts to drift off while watching the documentary, but he's woken up after hearing the documentary call him this. He's fallen asleep again, and we hear a different voice on the documentary, with a freeze frame on the spider. As the voice is talking, we see a shot above the TV, and we see that the voice we hear is the Grey Man talking to Dennis. And the Grey Man has just stood there describing the soulless spider's eyes watching him. And no, it's not the spider on the TV screen. We then cut to Dennis looking at the Grey Man face to face as if he's a reflection. The Grey Man tells Dennis he has a job for him. A job that will end the nightmares, which sounds very familiar. And it rightfully does, because the Grey Man snaps his finger and shows who he truly is. Dennis's reflection. The job that Dennis is told to do is to take a step up from killing cats and dogs and instead kill a child. Of course Dennis complies, believing this will help him, and he murders a child. Multiple children actually. Putting their bodies into the same freezer he put the cats and dogs in. This time Dennis breaks and he cries in front of the mirror mirror asking why he had to do that, and how he doesn't feel any smarter or different because of it. The reflection tells Dennis he did a good job, and that he has a secret to tell him. And that secret is basically full confirmation that his reflection is the grey man that haunts his dreams.
When you're sleeping at night, I'm the one who whispers in your ear. Sorry about the stories I tell, but it's just a little darker over here.
After this, Dennis's reflection acts differently. He no longer stands like Dennis, and he no longer speaks in the same way as him, always looking at him with this sinister look. Dennis, knowing that his reflection is the grey man, asks why he should even be doing what he says. He's the one who's been tormenting him, but this man is obviously a part of Dennis, and he has some influence over Dennis, convincing him to kill another target. This target being a girl working at the local ice cream place that Dennis has a crush on. The grey man tells Dennis that the girl would never go out with him, especially not with how he is. But if he was a serial killer, the mystery and intrigue may give him a shot at interesting her. Which, I mean, he isn't wrong, considering how many people fetishize serial killers. At first, when Dennis encounters her, it's obviously doesn't want to kill her, believing he may have a chance with her. So he asks her up front, and she turns him down. To be fair, he does it in an insanely creepy way.
I would like to have his baby.
So let's talk about red flags in men.
After this rejection, he storms out and goes on r/incels and gets 10,000 upvotes after creating a post about what happened. No, I mean, obviously he doesn't. He actually goes back and attempts to kill her, but she manages to get away, thankfully. Hopefully she can get to the local authorities and report Dennis to oh, well, never mind, I guess. The next day, John decides to treat Dennis and takes him out to a pizza place he loves with creepy ass animatronics that I personally couldn't eat food around. Dennis has a weird interest in the octopus animatronic specifically, and how it's even possible for it to move, asking John how it works. Of course, John explains it to him and Dennis just pretends he doesn't understand, like the idiot he thinks they see him as. He excuses himself to go to the toilet, and whilst he's in the toilet, he literally just murders a random guy who was probably just trying to take a shit. He wasn't even told to do that, he just murdered him. It's obvious the grey man has gained a significant amount of influence over Dennis, even to the point of tormenting him with hallucinations, specifically of the girl he liked, where the hallucination of her shows Dennis her knockers, and then proceeds to break all of her bones, getting to a spider-like position and chases Dennis down the hallway. It seems like every time Dennis falls asleep, the more influence the grey man got over him. We see this visually with every time Dennis talking to his reflection by another mirror, creating a form of corridor. It seems like this corridor allows the grey man to get closer to Dennis, each time showing him stepping through a mirror, killing a Dennis, getting closer and closer each time. Dennis, being aware of this, refuses to fall asleep now, terrified of what the grey man may make him do next. He even covers up any mirror he can just to be safe. But this doesn't help Dennis. The influence has gotten way too much for him, to the point where Dennis's reflection is able to switch places with him, just in time for when the police investigate the place, with the social services woman still suspecting that Dennis is being abused by John. Now, a personal theory I have is that Dennis's reflection, the grey man, isn't some like otherworldly thing like in most horror films. I think the fellow was just a part of Dennis's brain, his mentally ill brain, one that slowly took over the more hateful he became with how people around him treated him because of how he was. And I especially suspect this after Dennis takes Lydia as his final victim, and John comes home to find Dennis and Lydia in the hidden room. Lydia went to check on Dennis originally after they went out on another fucking dinner date, because of course, and she was taking a while and John got a bit suspicious, so he went home to look for her, especially after learning that the taxidermy tapes that Dennis had, well, it wasn't a mix-up at the video shop. So of course this concerns John and he rushes back to see if Lydia is okay, and he finds them both in the back room where he got the mirror from, and he sees Dennis all dressed up with Lydia sitting on his lap. So John takes a seat, suspecting nothing's wrong at all, even though he armed himself with a gun before entering. And this is where Dennis's magnum opus happens. At a closer look, we see that Lydia has been completely hollowed out, turned into a flesh ventriloquist dummy, and with her, Dennis describes his past with John, using all of the people he's killed as taxidermied puppets. He tells the story of how John was the one who physically crippled him because of his jealousy when they were younger, with how much smarter Dennis was and how much he was achieving compared to him, ruining his life completely. And that's why John looks after Dennis, out of the guilt of what he'd done. This entire scene is incredibly fucked up, and it gets even worse, especially when we see the social services worker's severed head attached to a spider made out of limbs, moving the same way the octopus animatronic moved in the restaurant they visited. Shit gets even crazier around John, as if he'd been pulled into the nightmares Dennis was experiencing. And knowing he has nothing else to live for, and from the sheer amount of guilt, he takes his own life there and then. After this, the spider Dennis created grabs him, which is incredibly confusing at first, until we get a cut to a mirror to see the reality, where the police had stormed the room, grabbing him. He'd finally been caught for his crimes, and put into a mental hospital.
I'm not in this hospital. This isn't me. I'm in this hospital. This is me. All I do now is hope. Hope that the cheap electric car will come crashing through the doors. I'll be safely back at the carnival, and the scariest haunted house in the world will finally come to an end.
The Evil Within is a very strange film, let's be real. And we all know that he got the idea when he played The Evil Within for the first time, the best game ever made. Incredible game. I mean, who wouldn't be inspired by this game? And he made it. He did it. He made it. And it's pretty good. It's pretty good. Okay, all jokes aside, I do love The Evil Within, but I just want to thank you all so much for the support you've given me on this channel in the past, month. We're almost at 10,000 subscribers, and that is insane to me. On my main channel, it took me, I'd say 2 years, maybe 3 years to get to 10,000 subscribers, and I've managed to reach that milestone in just over a month on this channel, and that is absolutely insane to me, especially when it comes to people who are willing to support me on Patreon and YouTube membership. That is absolutely insane to me that people are willing to spend money to get early access to this content. So yeah, as much as I just wanted to re-upload this video onto my channel, I also wanted to leave a little thank you message at the end, because I really appreciate everyone's support. Now, time to give a big shout out to my Patreon members. Huge thank you to Nintendo Pro, Prophet, Ryan IDC, Pitstab, Bouncer Storm Productions, and Daniel Levchenko. And obviously a huge thank you to my channel members. There are so many of you now, holy shit. Bidoof Fadoom? Is that like the Pokemon Bidoof? That's a cool username. Gabriel Padro 5589, Scary 1407, Eteria, Eggy 613, Wentel 77, Riff King 66, Dizrays 3250, Sobitax, Liam Talks About, Andreas Stewart 8871, Ethank 78, Galaxy 11243, Simon Telmac 3422. I always hesitate when saying your name, man. I'm so sorry. Floaty38, Wolfborn TV, Rust on Wood, L Hayes, or some balding guy rambling into the void, as he's known, Griefgar, and the OG Resistance Lion. Again, thank you guys so much for supporting me. I really appreciate it. It is incredibly overwhelming how many of you there are who are willing to pay money for this shit. It makes me very happy, because I love doing it. I will see you all in the next video that probably won't be a re-upload. No, it most definitely won't be a re-upload, but I hope you enjoyed this one anyway, because I thought, you know, a film called The Evil Within kind of needs to go on this channel, you know?